Hit me.
From Studio P in Sausalito, the home of the hit, it's time for...
Succotash.
Yes, Succotash Chats, the original comedy soundcast featuring interviews from comedy...
Soundcast.
Soundcasters, comedians, comedian soundcasters, and other showbiz folks. And here's your host, internationally recognized comedy soundcast soundcaster, Marc Hershon.
Yes, it's me, Marc Hershon, your host and stain-resistant fabric for Epi157 of Succotash, the Comedy Soundcast Soundcast. And we are not the only personal audio program using the new Soundcast description. I just got to listen to Epi7 of the Los Angeles Breakfast Club on the air. And the host, our friend Phil Leirness, mentions Soundcast in relation to that show, which, BTW, is a lot of fun. Phil's got tracks from the LABC dating back to the 1920s all the way up to last month. And the show has an adequate announcer, too. They can't afford themselves a Bill Heywatt yet, so I agreed to do it. Check out the Los Angeles Breakfast Club on the air. They're on Libsyn, iTunes, and other distribution points across the vast intertubes. I'll have to feature a snippet on a future Succotash Clips. But not this show, because this episode is a Succotash Chat show. And our special guest is Jordan Brady, who's making a speedy return to this program. He was with us for our sesquicentennial episode 150, and now, with his third movie in the I Am Comic trilogy being released to the public for streaming and download, I wanted to have him back. I Am Battle Comic is available on Amazon, iTunes, and some other places too. Plus, you can purchase a download directly from their IamBattleComic.com home site. We'll be back with my chat with Jordan right after this word from our sponsor.
Hello, friends. Bill Heywatt here. You know, with the summer winding down and the days getting shorter, it's a sure sign that it's back to school time. While kids might be grumbling that their fun is about to end, they can still be having a great time when they hit those hallowed halls in their new Henderson's back to school pants. Far from being too cool for school, Henderson's back to school pants are just right, regardless of whether your offspring is star of the football team or a wimpy loser who gets beaten up by the bike racks every day after class.
On the advice of counsel, Henderson's Pants wants to assure listeners of this program that we do not tolerate nor support bullying in our nation's schools or playgrounds. The childhood spectrum illustrated in this commercial message is not intended to denigrate or mock those children who might be seen as being of lesser ability or popularity than other more desirable young people. We invite opposing views to contact the management of Henderson's Pants via this program. We now return to the commercial, already in progress. Bill?
Thank you, Joe. Originally designed for private school, public school, and that school of hard knocks, Henderson's Back to School Pants can be found in the aisles next to peachy folders, pencil boxes, and small caliber firearms, wherever back-to-school supplies are sold. That's Henderson's, makers of knickers and knee pants since 1917. And now back to Succotash.
I have boxes. Maybe I told you I had videotapes, boxes of videotapes from all the stand-up shows and appearances, and a family of rats chewed up the half-inch VHS tape and made a nest out of it. One day I was cleaning out the garage, and my kids were little, and as I pulled the box down, I thought, someday I'll show them, Dad with his mullet, fashionable,
and his pushed-up sports coat sleeves.
The sport coat sleeves, and doing the funny bits, and thin, and a young Adonis, and and a rat jumped out of the box, and I screamed like a schoolgirl, and the little babies were just so cozy in a nest of whatever that stuff is made of.
Your old memories. A nest of your old memories.
It was Bill Rafferty's Good Time Cafe became a breeding ground for rodents.
It doesn't seem much of a change from when it was actually being used for comics careers. Jordan Brady, how are you?
I'm good. You might be the only person to get that reference, actually.
Well, that's all right. That was just for me. You were last a guest not too long ago on our sesquicentennial 150th episode.
And I was flattered.
It was a delight to have you, and I'm happy to have you again.
You're very kind. I mean it. All jokes aside, you're very kind to have me on, and I think it helped. I mean, when I was on the what do you call it?
Sesquicentennial.
The sesquicentennial, which sounds like a celebration of Yeti.
It does, or Wookiees, either way.
Or Wookiees. I was on that tour doing these one-night screenings and Q&As for I Am Battle Comic. And I'm happy to report to the listeners, thanks to their help, we raised over $25,000 for spread over 4 different military-centric charities.
Oh, that's great.
Or for military families and veterans and the families of active duty people. So not bad. I mean, we sold out in Los Angeles, and more importantly, it kind of sparked a Q&A conversation amongst civilians and even military people that would stand up and say something. And it was really fulfilling. Like creatively, it was really fulfilling.
That's great. That's great. Yeah. But now the main reason we're talking to you is that the I Am Battle comic is about to make its public debut.
Yes. Oh, I'm so excited.
That's so cool. So how did this all come about? You found distribution, and tell us the tale of how it goes from you kind of schlepping the film around to these different things to raise money for military charities and things, and now it's going to be where people can get to it.
I just was putting on my Facebook like pre-order at iTunes, but I'm thinking by the time people hear this, it's on iTunes.
Yeah, well, that's what we're hoping for. Yeah,
Hulu, Amazon. I saw it on Walmart's website, which is that's where you strive for.
Well, you have arrived. You have arrived along with the Method soap, I guess.
Don't knock the Method. Oh boy, the packaging. It could be crap soap, but the packaging is so clean.
It's amazing. It really is. I mean, it changed a lot of the way sort of normal household, what would you call them? Sort of staples are packaged. Because people go, wow, I guess it can make a difference. Even though, like you said, the soap in it's perfectly good soap. Is it any different than anything else? I don't know, but the package makes you go, wow, this is cool.
Yeah. I feel young again. Well, I've always thought, Mark, that there's one giant truck, like the milk truck or the gasoline truck, full of shampoo. Yeah. And it pulls up to the different bottling plants, and they just have a big spigot at the end, and they fill the shampoo bottles. Then they go to the next shampoo thing, and maybe the shampoo maker puts like a little flowery scent in it. They slap their own label on, and it's all the same shit.
You know what? I think you are not alone in that thought. I think a lot of people have that same idea. And it's one of those things. I buy like contact lens solution. I just need something that's going to lubricate the contact lens. And so I go to like Walgreens and I get their in-store brand, and like in fine print at the very bottom it says compare to, and then it has like the leading brand of contact lens solution. You look at the ingredients side by side, they're exactly the same.
Oh my goodness. And the Walmart people, and I think they're Walgreens, right? Walgreens people, I mean. Mm-hmm. And Rite Aid, I think, does this. And CVS, they mimic the package that they're undercutting
as close as they can. Yeah, the image looks the same, and exactly. The colors are always kind of very close.
It's the Tylenol font, but it's just called ibuprofen.
Yes. Yeah. Or I like when Walgreens does this a lot, where they put the WAL from Wall at the beginning of whatever the name of the generic is.
Sure, Walquill.
I'm taking Walsprin right now for my headache.
Here's the answer to your question.
Yes.
And it's kind of a show-busy answer.
Perfect then.
Okay, good. I mean, you can, cut me off. It's your show.
No. This is your show, friend. This is your show.
So listen to this. You've had me on several times promoting these documentaries, and the I Am Comic trilogy is now complete.
It is now complete. Yep.
Some would say I Am Battle Comic is the return of the Jedi of the I Am Comic series.
And it's not until somebody ponies up a lot of bucks you're going to make 3 really crappy films that come before I Am Comic.
Well,
I Am Open Mic Comic. What am I doing here? And hey, Mixed Nuts, the improv comic movie.
Right. I Am Guitar Act.
I Am Prop Comic.
Which is not a bad movie.
No. Well, I guess we'll find out.
Yeah. The legendary Wid would star for the comedy nerds. He was like Carrot Top's grandfather.
Yeah, the legendary
Very funny.
Oh my God.
He's legendary.
Yeah, I mean, Gary Mulder was a prop comic.
Oh my God. And Joel Hodgson.
Yes.
Some great inventive props.
The late Vic Dunlop.
Oh my goodness. You know the story about him, right? With the crazy eyes. He would sell these eyes, and then like an IRS guy was in the audience, and
yeah,
he got audited for
selling eyes. He was the first one who got dinged for his merch.
The merch ding.
And and he bought those little plastic bags of those eyes. It was just these eyes, and he would put them in he had them in his act, and people would want them because they were just these little plastic shells that would go over your own closed eyes, and they look crazy. And he bought them in Mexico for like 3 cents a package, and then would sell them after the show for like $10 a piece.
I mean, I can't even do the math at what an astronomical markup that is.
Yeah.
Maybe I Am Merch is the next one.
I Am Merch Comic.
That would be like episode 1.
And that would be every comedian at some point in their career selling a CD. Or did you ever sell CDs or anything?
I sold blank CDs and cassettes, and said, "Look, you can record whatever you want on this. This is a real bargain."
But it had your picture on the outside.
Oh, of course. I had T-shirts. I had some T-shirts with something that, I mean, it was very hack. But so get this. In 2010, I Am Comic came out, right? The first documentary.
Yeah.
And I went to the festival circuit, had a blast, and then hooked up with Monterey Media, the nicest people in the world. Like when I say mom and pop, literally Scott and Jerry Mansfield are married, and they run this thing, and they've been in the movie business for 30 plus years, and they own this company, and they love comedy. So they took on I Am Comic, and we did really well. So I was on a podcast earlier in 2017, Barry Katz, the industry standard.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
For those that don't know, you've probably profiled him on the show, right?
Yeah, reviewed it, and I think we played a clip. If we haven't, I'll play a clip soon. But yeah, it's a great. I mean, he's such a steeped in comedy kind of guy. So yeah, it's a great soundcast for those who have not heard it yet.
Oh, and Barry Katz is I try to imitate him, but I sound like Mr. Haney from Green Acres. But he managed, Jay Moore and Tracy Morgan, and so he had me on his show, or I had him on Respect the Process, I think it was. I forget. I think we did a dual thing.
Oh, okay.
And I said something about I Am Road Comic, which Comedy Dynamics did. They do all the comedian specials. And he goes, "You're a good guy. Why didn't you just go back to Monterey Media?" And I said, I mean, it was like therapy. And I said, you're right. I should. They did really well. And so I called him. I just called up. This is not even a good story then. I called up Monterey Media, and I said, "Hey, I want you guys to release I Am Battle Comic." And they said yes. So I didn't go to any festivals. I did the tour of fundraising screenings, myself.
Yeah.
And that satisfied me, the filmmaker Jones, to see it with a crowd.
Right.
And Monterey has picked it up, and they've also embraced the fundraising aspect. Like there's a link on the page that if you click on the link to National Military Family Association, a bunch of money from your purchase goes to that charity.
Oh, cool.
Because I said, hey, I've been doing these screenings, and they said, well, we'd like to continue that for you.
That's great.
Isn't that cool?
So how will people be able to view it? You said it's on iTunes. It's on where else?
Amazon, Vudu, Roku, Rickshaw. I'm making some of these up now.
Slingshot. Spitball.
Right.
See how easy it is to create names, by the way?
That's good. Koala.
Just take two words and put them together, and you've got a new thing. Yeah.
Zip tie. It's a new format.
Enjoy it on Pillow Talk.
And my favorite, Husker Du. Well, if you go, here's what I've simplified. I've simplified it. IamBattleComic.com. Just go to IamBattleComic.com.
And it'll take
take you everywhere. It'll give you all the choices in the world, and it's real easy, Mark, because the name of the movie is I Am Battle Comic.
Yeah,
and then you don't. I don't even know if you have to put the .com, right? You can just put I Am Battle Comic, and then you click, and it'll go to the site with charities you can donate to, with ways you can buy it. Yeah, I'm sure you can rent it on YouTube, and you can download it. You can rent it. Just I Am Battle Comic. By the way, terrible name. Did we talk about that last time?
We did, because of the TV show about the there's the comic show, right? And they're calling that something Battle.
I think it's Roast Battle.
Battle. Yeah. But after our conversation, I was trying to think, well, what else would you call it? And I don't know if you've got alternative titles that you kind of go, oh, I should have gone with such and such. But there's titles that obviously would better explain what the concept is, I guess, more of a descriptive title, as we would say in the branding business.
Yeah, right.
But it's
you're the brand expert. Tell me, how about, let me pitch you one I was thinking of.
Yeah.
I Am Comic, : it would be the colon. It wouldn't actually be the word colon.
No.
I Am Comic.
That's a different documentary.
Right, totally. I Am Comic, military grade.
You know what? If the rest of the trilogy had the same sort of process to it, or the same sort of military grade, and then something else that would be more germane to being a road comic and stuff.
Right. I Am Comic Road Edition.
Yes.
Would have been another one.
Yes. But then that's a different branding technique. And so to just kind of throw military grade out there, it's kind of like, oh, he came up with something clever for the third one.
Well, so in the film, Wayne Fetterman addresses the question that everyone asked me and everyone asked the comedians, Dave Attell, whoever goes over there. Were you ever scared? You're so brave to go do that. Mm-hmm. And Fetterman's line was, I don't think I was brave, but I was around the troops that are brave. So I was in the vicinity of bravery,
yes,
which would be a great title for the documentary. And believe you me, there was about a 3-week period where I was like, if I had the balls, I would call this In the Vicinity of Bravery. But it was only funny contextually to the story.
Yeah.
And
it would be an interesting descriptor line, though, because I could see I Am Battle Comic in the vicinity of bravery. Something like
that would work.
Like that, yeah.
I think the artwork is shipped.
That's okay.
Yeah.
I Am Battle Comic works with I Am Comic, I Am Road Comic. You get the progression of what's going on there. Even if you never make another one, it's easy for people to say, wow, he could make another one. Like we talked about, cruise ships and some other ideas you've had. And, you could see the line extending if all of a sudden there was like this thing where you go, you know what, I am going to make a big series of these, or maybe I'll farm them out to a bunch of people, let them make like
I would do that, yeah.
Like the the Dummies books, the Some Things for Dummies, where the original authors just franchise the thing out to people.
You just license the title.
Yeah.
Well, the one I'm seriously considering is I Am Son of Comic.
You'd mentioned that because you've got the guy that was with you, and you've got that great sequence we talked about in the last interview.
Oh yeah, Jeff Capri and his father, the legendary Dick Capri.
Yeah, and the fact that he had also entertained troops, and there was that magic of the two sort of generations of comedians talking about the business with each other.
Well, look at Damon Wayans Jr., or Ben Stiller. I mean, there are.
Look at Blake and Travis Clark.
There, look at that.
Right.
Right. So I think there's tons and tons of them, and there's some women that are sons of comedians, but I have to say that, or they wouldn't be allowed in the movie.
I guess you could say offspring of comic, but then
that's a bad title.
Exactly. Plus, you lose the connection to the whole son of werewolf thing that comes from.
Well, what is your feeling about this? I am podiatrist, like the I am series alive, but to be done with comedy.
I think you've at that point you sort of broken the barrier on being able to do anything about a profession. I would say, I am podiatrist with a comedy bent is because I keep running into these comics that were comics and now they still might do it occasionally. But
sure.
They had to get a real job. There's a guy up here I saw the other night. We did a Robin Williams birthday celebration to raise money for the Throckmorton Theater. And
wow.
There were a bunch of guys that showed up that, hung out with Robin. I did some improv with Jeff Bolt and Michael O'Brien, and Will Durst was there, and Mark Pitta, and a bunch of people. But there were a bunch of guys that showed up just to be in the audience, maybe hoping, hey, can you want to get up and do a couple of minutes? But the show was way too long. And they're doing things like one guy's like a wine expert who runs a tasting room and stuff like that. So the idea you could track comics down.
It's called Spit Takes, isn't it? It's like a comedy wine tasting.
See, you could be in the branding business. Don't fool yourself.
I dabble.
I think because of your commercial direction career, you've somehow backed your way into a branding motif.
Oh, I love branding. I find it fascinating, and we're in an era where people talk about their personal brand, which back in the old days we called it personality.
Now it's a brand.
Now it's a brand.
Yep, that's the way I look. Here's my smile I like to do for people.
Well, people do. They sort of, your online presence curates your brand, and I say this somewhat mockingly, but I can't deny it. I can't fight it.
Yeah. It's just the way it is. And so you wonder about people that put kind of goofy profile pictures up and they're there for like 12 years. And it's like, that's your brand, dude. You did some sort of Photoshop thing where you look all fat or you just kind of got a mustache or something that isn't really you, but you just never change it. So that's how your friends get to know who you are eventually. They go, you're the guy with the mustache.
You're like, what? What was that?
Yeah, exactly.
By the way, how old would Robin Williams have been?
66, I believe.
Wow.
Yeah.
He'll live forever in my heart as, 50 years old at most, with the energy of an 18-year-old.
Yes. Yeah, it was kind of funny. My wife came to the show and was in the audience. I can't watch comedy that much anymore. I'm always back in the green room or hanging out, and I just can't kind of sit through very much of it. But she was watching the show, and one of the guys on the bill was Stephen Pearl. And
he's hilarious.
He is hilarious, and he was, of all the guys that were there. I mean, people are getting kind of long of tooth and a little bit slow on the draw, but Pearl is still just a maniac on stage, and it was sort of the closest thing to that Robin Williams energy,
right?
Was watching Pearl, because he's pretty heavy now, but he was still just dashing around the stage, sweating like a maniac, and it was darn close to the. Again, he wasn't doing what Robin did comedy wise, but that energy, that manic energy, and that's really what you kind of miss not having him around.
In editing. For I Am Battle Comic, there's unlimited clips of Robin going anywhere that there was trouble. And probably, this is what my research taught me, that even more than Bob Hope, Robin Williams went to the thick of it. Like, Bob Hope was sort of, if his documentary might be on the outskirts of trouble,
instead of the heart of darkness.
Yeah, not knocking Bob Hope at all. I mean,
right.
I don't want this to come off like I'm taking a shot. Bob Hope went to where there were troops all around the world, and started this tradition. But I would see these clips of Robin Williams, and I mean, anywhere in Afghanistan, Iraq, Djibouti, just and full of that same vigor, and the way people would light up when he would come on stage. Interestingly enough, through the magic of Facebook, I met a guy, service veteran, who was there. He was on base in the crowd with a video camera and filmed it, the same clip that made some special from a different angle.
Oh, really?
So I had two angles of the same performance. I mean, kind of by a miracle, right? This guy, he goes, "Hey, I think you might want this footage I shot when I was in the Air Force." So I was able to actually edit the clips together
and cut between shots.
Yeah, and tighten it up a little bit. And
that's
there's
crazy.
A couple bad words, but just his trademark "Good Morning Vietnam," which I will spare the listener, but he would do it at the top of his lungs. And if "Good morning, Kazakhstan," and wherever he was, and people would, the troops would just go crazy. And can you imagine? So like what I experienced in Afghanistan, and what the comics in the movie talked about when they went to Iraq or anywhere, Korea, or a base even in Okinawa or Eastern Europe. The troops are missing that taste of home, of America.
Yes. And
so they were so gracious and thankful that we came over, like, you remembered us. Okay, so we're here. I was with, no slight to my fellow battle comics, but there's no household name. So then you go on the other end of the spectrum, and you have Robin Williams. I mean,
that's astounding.
And he seems so pure and happy being of service with his comedy.
It's kind of amazing. I mean, Dana Carvey, who's done this show a number of times and was on recently, he hates flying, so he never wanted to go into like a battle zone or anything. But what he does and never tells anybody about is he goes to he'll go to like the Army Hospital in Bethesda, Maryland, and he'll just show up and just kind of walk around to the different rooms to all the soldiers and stuff like that, and never makes a deal about it. The press never knows about it. And to him, that's his reaching out. And it's, the same thing. I mean, I've never been with him on it, but he tells me just the feeling he gets from doing it is just people are just astounded that, somebody of that magnitude has shown up at their bedside.
You're talking to, you'll find no bigger fan of Dana Carvey's comedy than the man you're talking to, because just the silliness, the cleverness, I was never able to do a character. So when you watch his body of work, and so when he comes in the room, the context of that's Dana Carvey, your mind flips from Church Lady, Hans and Franz, Wayne and Garth. He just walks in, you're already laughing because of his comedy you've consumed in your life. It's been inescapable.
Yeah, the episode just two before, let's see, when was it? 155. Does
that have a word? Is that called the
sesquitentional cinco? But he just called me up and said he's been living in LA, but he was up here for a couple of weeks doing some gigs, and he still has a house here in Northern California, and he goes, "Hey, you want to do a podcast?" Like, okay. So I grabbed my equipment, went over, and we ended up with him, Mark Pitta, and Larry Bubbles Brown.
Oh my goodness.
Just sitting around. And it was just so funny because his thing now is trying to find weird characters that are known, but that nobody's kind of doing. And it's really hard because there's not a whole lot of people that have a trademark voice that when you do it, people recognize what it is. So he was trying out.
You mean that someone that it isn't already doing?
Yeah, yeah, and that's just even out there. It's the days of film stars like Jimmy Stewart and Cagney and all those people that were really easy to do impressions of because they were so distinctive. There's not a whole lot of that out there anymore. So he had,
and if there's people doing them.
Yeah. So he had recorded these two messages. He had done Howard Stern's show, and after he got done doing the Howard Stern show, he got a call from J.J. Abrams, who just wanted to hang out with him. And so he's been hanging out with J.J. Abrams. And
is that a good impression?
No. But what was the impression was he had recorded a couple of things on his phone that he then played from the phone to J.J. Abrams' answering machine. And one of them was Jeff Bridges calling, trying to get work. And the other was Michael Caine calling to get work. And they were two of the funniest clips I've ever heard, because it's not him trying to make an audience laugh. It's just him trying to make J.J. Abrams laugh.
That's hilarious.
And they were the Jeff Daniels one is so funny. I mean, Michael Caine is great too, but you hear people.
I think he did Michael Caine in the HBO special.
I think he may
Netflix special.
Yeah, but I'd never heard his Jeff Bridges before, and he really had nailed it. It was very funny.
He's the king. In fact, that there was a show Dana Carvey hosted recently about impressions.
Yeah, First Impressions. It was like a game show on TBS or something.
And that to me was the nail in the coffin for I Am Mimic that I'd started.
Yeah. Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. Well, I interviewed Jay Moore because I know Jay's super nice guy, and he, everybody these days does Christopher Walken.
But he nailed it. He was the first one to kind of nail it, right?
He was the one to do it on SNL. And Kevin Pollak does a really good Christopher Walken. So I was in talks with Kevin to get to interview him. And then I went to a guy named Roger Kabler, who older comics would know as the Zima guy back in the 90s. Roger's super sweet guy. We had actually met at a show. He does a one-man tribute to Robin Williams.
Oh, really?
That it's spooky the way he... I mean, Google that, or I can send you a link to the promo.
Yeah.
It's spot on, and it's all from love. And he said people that would come to the show would be kind of therapeutic, because I think we were all a little. I mean, you would know from your show the other night, like people don't want to let go.
No, I mean, he was really beloved. They rededicated a freeway tunnel here in Marin County as the Robin Williams Tunnel, because for years it's had this, as you go in from the San Francisco side into Marin, the arches on the tunnel are painted with a rainbow. The idea you're getting out of the fog and moving into the sun. But because
I know that tunnel.
Yeah, because of those rainbow suspenders he used to wear back in the day, they thought that was indicative of him, and because he was raised in Marin County, and spent so much of his time up here, they renamed it the Robin Williams Tunnel.
Oh, that's nice. That's so sweet.
Yeah. So you see that sign when you go into the tunnel every time. So he sort of is definitely this beloved figure. And again, the theater we did it in, the Throckmorton, he would show up there all the time because he lived 10 minutes away. And some nights he would never go up. He would just sit in the green room, or he'd sit in the audience and watch or whatever. But a lot of times he would get up and do a set to close the show on Tuesday nights when they did comedy.
Wow, that's magical.
Yeah. Speaking of magical, in terms of your movie, this is what I was wondering about. Have you gotten any reaction from guys that were over there when you were shooting that have now returned home and have either heard about the movie or have seen the film since they've been back?
Yes, I was at a screening that in Phoenix at the Harkins, in the multiplex. We did a fundraiser for the Semper Fi Fund. It's packed. A bunch of the comedians. Bob Kubota is from Phoenix. He was there. He went on the tour with me.
Yeah.
And at the Q&A, this 6-foot-something man, I mean, big guy, stands up and he says, "I don't really have a question. I have a statement. I just left Bagram Airfield, where we shot a lot of the stuff and did shows in Afghanistan. And he goes, I was the wing commander.
Oh.
So he's in the
movie, right?
No, he was there the year before.
Oh, okay.
Right. So he goes, I've seen these shows. I can tell you the morale effect on morale for the men and women. And he turned to the audience. He goes, I'm just telling you, this is the highest compliment I've received on this. This is, yes, it's about these comedians doing their shows, but it's also one of the best depictions of sort of daily life on base. I mean, this is what they go through. This is the job. These are the jobs that they do. They're always at the ready. It's every day's a Monday.
Wow.
You don't really know what days of the week don't matter. And if you're in the fire department, this is what you do. If you're in the bomb, like Hurt Locker division,
yeah, that's
what you do. And the film shows that. So you can see how we're ready to go 24/7. So it was on a documentary, on the level of a documentary, it was, he said it was very true. Is that the right way to say that? Yeah. I'm not really educated. I don't speak well, not I. But it was very touching. And then the same night, a Vietnam veteran stood up and said he was very happy at the way the civilian population now is more welcoming of the troops when they come home.
Oh, good.
Because they in the Vietnam era, when people came home, we either blamed them or turned away from them. We wanted to ignore the veterans.
Yes.
So that's been really cool. And then same thing in Vegas, we did a fundraiser, and a bunch of veterans were there, and just really excited to see the movie. There was a guy at the LA screening who was in some sort of special forces, and he said it disturbed him a little bit because there's mentions of people dying in combat or suicide and things. So it was one of my biggest fears come true, that there are some portions of the reality of it that stirred up some emotions for people.
Yeah. But I think that's important in a documentary that happens. It's not like you were trying to hide anything, right? I mean, these are things that came up in the course of filming, and I guess you do ultimately make that decision of whether do you put this in, how much of it do you put in, how do you couch it, that sort of thing.
Oh, amen. I agree that I couldn't ignore. The crazy thing is with these documentaries is they always turn out better than I think they're going to be. and I say that not because of me. I think I'll just make some silly story about comedians and let the comedians be funny. And then along the way, something will happen. And with every movie, I run home to my wife at some point and go, oh my gosh, you got to see this. Docu-gold. Docu-gold. Even tragic things that have happened. 2 weeks before Wayne Fetterman and I went to Jack Diddley's to perform for I Am Road Comic, right?
Yeah, yeah.
2013 something. The bouncers had tossed a patron out of Jack Diddley's. He lands on his head and goes into a coma.
Oh man.
So I start getting these Facebook messages because I had posted hey, we're filming, come to the show. I need a comic to open up because Jordan Brady was going to perform after 20 years and couldn't do the time. So I needed to dole out guest sets to build a show. So I was on Facebook actively and Twitter, and people were bombarding me saying, boycott Jack Diddley's. Boycott Jack Diddley's. And there was a vigilante protest at the club when we got there the same night. Wow. And I'm just, it's tragic, this guy in a coma. Yeah. And I would say to my wife, this is docu-gold. I am so blessed this man is in a coma. What a terrible person I am.
Oh, my God.
He's okay now, by the way.
Oh, good, good.
Yeah.
I wouldn't imagine be joking about it if things had taken a bad turn.
Well,
but maybe you would.
Yeah,
you're a dark guy.
Rich Scheidner in I Am Comic was going back on stage for the first time in over a decade.
Yeah.
He was pacing like a caged tiger before a shitty open mic set. And he's reading his new jokes and he's practicing them outside this saloon in Van Nuys called the Liquid Zoo. Yeah. And it's like, I mean, bad open mic. And I just said, Rich, if you kill, think of how great that will be for this documentary. But if you bomb, think how great that will be for this documentary. There is no pressure. Doc, you go. And then he did really well and he came off, he was really happy. And I was like, Doc, you gold. So there were things in I Am Battle Comic, my point being that things that would happen and stories that people would share and some tragic. In fact, Slade Ham is a comedian.
Yeah.
I think that's his real name. I think his name is
John Hamm, but he had to change it because it was confusing with the guy from Mad Men.
I was going to go Slade Baloney. I was trying to think of a joke there, but great guy. This guy's a great guy. Single, okay, good-looking chap.
Mm-hmm.
He basically lives on the road, like globally. Like, you know, Tom Rhodes is a global comedian. He just goes everywhere. Greg Proops.
Yeah.
It just goes everywhere around the world. The component that Slade Ham has is he mixes in military bases. I mean, he's been to 50 countries, just about every continent. And he said to me, we met in Kuwait City, like on this trip at the airport, and we became instant friends. And he said, when we get, I know the story that you're really going to like. And he talks about the serviceman that he had met that he had become his biggest fan.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. That's right.
And
yeah, that's
later,
in the movie. Yeah,
in the movie, he got killed on a patrol by a IED, and the unit sent the patch off his arm to Slade back in Texas.
Right.
He said, he's a tough guy. He goes, I don't cry. And that's and I just edit right there. Like he goes, I don't cry at all. And I just cut forward in the story because we all get that he cried.
Yeah.
And he waited until we got to the Tree of Life, which, by the way, there must be like 17 trees of life around the world.
Oh, sure.
Right?
Yeah.
But we were in some desert, and he goes, wait till we're at the Tree of Life, and I'll tell you, because it's a special meaning for me. Mm. And when I was editing, I was kind of doing it chronologically. And since that story was told to me later in the trip, I had it later in the movie.
Right.
And my wife, a filmmaker in her own right, is watching this film, and it's like 30 minutes in, and she hits the space bar, and she goes, I don't know what the fuck I'm watching. Why do I care about these people and their jokes? And like, why do they do this? And I said, well, wait, watch this. And I played that scene. She goes, if that's not in the first 10 minutes, no one's going to watch this. She didn't say it with the aggression that I'm telling the story, but I'm trying to make it a little more controversial.
Yeah.
So right there on the spot, I grabbed that whole scene and moved it forward.
Yeah.
And whenever I've told someone about the movie, I'm going, if you can make it through the first 8 minutes, you're going to be hooked and you're going to be crying. Yeah.
No, that's powerful. That your wife was right.
She was totally right. I almost screwed the pooch on this.
Which leads me to the idea of, and this is probably I could probably ask this question of any docu filmmaker, but when you start out with one of these stories, you must have some sort of preconceived notion of what this might be like. And how much does that preconception get tossed? How soon into the process does it get tossed when you realize there's a bunch of other stories you never even thought of because they never occurred to you until you started talking to people, and all of a sudden everything goes a completely different direction than what you had in mind?
83%. That's the scientific answer. Is 83% gets tossed out the window. I've done the math. I've made 3 documentaries.
That's amazing.
It's an average.
That's amazing.
It's a mean average. Yes, I go in with what I think is going to be a through line, and then ultimately it changes and something falls in your lap, right? Something. It's truly Deus ex machina, right? It's a hand of God or whatever you believe in, the filmmaking gods. Something happens, but I'm of the theory, like with improv, you can't have, and I've talked to a lot of great improvisers, going, do you have one in the chamber? And they're like, yeah, but it never works because someone on stage says, I always think I have a funny thing I'm going to say.
Yeah.
And then as I'm walking out, something's different. Someone reacts differently, and you got to surrender to that.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
So to me, documentary filmmaking is like, now there are, like, I'm sure that Werner Herzog and who's my favorite, Errol Morris, Davis Guggenheim, these are great documentary filmmakers. Cutler, R.J. Cutler, made some great documentaries. Well, although he's very verite, he did like the September issue, and there's a wonderful documentary on Rudy Valentino, the designer.
Yeah,
and it's basically a love story, and you can see where they thought they were going to document his last big show, but the story became about he and his husband, like their love.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
So like with I Am Comic, my plan was to stage like a spoof of Last Comic Standing and take an undiscovered comedian and get them on late night television and get them a showcase and then put them in New York or LA for 2 weeks, like an unknown, and pay for them to go to showcases.
Yeah.
So it would have been like New York, like arrange sets and manipulate and watch them like in a petri dish. And I shot that. In fact, there was a woman who Eddie Brill at the time was booking Letterman.
Yeah.
And so I went to a showcase, and I have the woman coming off stage after killing Melanie Camacho, shaking hands with Eddie, I got the sound bites of like, great set, I want to get you to New York, and and I followed up, and the storyline just sort of fizzled. And then Scheidner then basically, goes crazy and has to perform, and that became the heart of the movie. I didn't go in going, what if I take a retired guy and put him back on stage?
Yeah.
I'm not that smart.
But smart enough to realize the story when you see it.
God willing. So I Am Battle Comic, the things that happened were, for one, there was a sergeant, an Air Force sergeant who was an MP, who just came up to us in the cafeteria, and I have the camera, and he says, I just want to tell you what it means for you to come here. And he started talking about morale and extending if someone was ever thinking about the suicide problem, that this is going to postpone that, if not deter it altogether. So the suicide rate I knew about in veterans back home, but I was unaware of it. And I don't want to make it like that's the biggest thing, because I think, obviously the majority come home safe, don't hurt themselves.
Right.
But if it can help those people, the laughter that people are bringing, like I didn't get the gravitas of what it meant to perform. So then I started asking the comics I was with, and they're like, oh yeah, we get letters from parents saying that, not that their kid was maybe going to kill themselves, but just they were having a hard time. They were going nuts. They hated it. No one likes war.
Yeah.
Especially the troops. So it got them through another 6 months. And that steered the story quite a bit.
Yeah, which you can see, and I mean, you really get a feel for what you're talking about there. How they really do enjoy the fact that somebody has come to entertain them, almost regardless of who it is. Like we were talking earlier, it could be someone of the stature of a Robin Williams, or it could be a stature of a Slade Ham. It almost doesn't have any bearing on it. It's the idea of, wow, you guys remembered we're here and came out to entertain us, take our minds off things for a few minutes. And it really does come through.
Tammy Pescatelli and Jennifer Rawlings, two moms that are comics that have done multiple tours. Like when the individual men and women of our services see a mother come over, I think that carries even more weight. Like, wow, you're coming over, you're away from your kids and putting yourself at risk. Here is this. Maybe I shouldn't share this, but in the spirit of comedy gold, and the guy in the coma, and you know, I always wanted, like, would a heckler in the first one punch somebody in the face? You know, you want something like. I did kind of wish there was some shit that would go down. Like, I was hoping that there was like a firefight or isn't that, I'm a horrible person I was kept hoping, like, man, I hope like a bomb goes off. But I didn't want anybody to get hurt. I just wanted that
docu gold, man.
The docu gold. So instead, I would film the news in my hotel sometimes we're in barracks and, you know, on base, and then sometimes we would spend a few days in a hotel. So I started filming the news because while I was gone, the train in Brussels was attacked. This is a year ago in the spring, and Paris was still healing. You know, Syria was becoming the new hotspot for terrorism. And I would film the news and get this horrible footage of people, you know, wrap bandages in their head, and what are we going to do about ISIS and Syria, you know, children getting bombed, and then fighting in Iraq over, you know, oil amongst Iraqis.
Yeah.
And I realized, well, that's the villain. That the world turmoil is the villain of this movie.
Right. So you've got we talked a little bit about this the last time, where you use that as little sort of interstitial bits between the chunks of the story, which is great.
For context.
Yeah.
But secretly, I was hoping the shit would hit where I was.
Of course.
I'm a whore. This is terrible. I shouldn't share this.
No, it's fantastic. This, my friend, is
Carvey's going to hear this. He's going to be so upset. He's going to be like,
no, this is Soundcast gold, my friend.
Confessions.
Well, Jordan, I'm so excited for you that people are going to get a chance to really see this movie in a wide way. I mean, before you were kind of offering it if you could get to the website and get to see it or something, but now that you've got the distribution, this thing is going out to a point where everybody can get to it online and see it for themselves. It really is, I thought, the most powerful of the three comic series movies. And I think you did a great job with it. And
I'm very, very flattered. Thank you. You know, if I could offer one call to action to the listeners,
absolutely,
is there was a reason that when we did the tour, or if you go to iambattlecomic.com and you can, you know, click on a charity link to buy it or buy it direct or however you want to do it, that's secondary to my wish is that we civilians don't let what happened to the Vietnam vets happen now. And not every vet comes back with PSTD, and you may find that they're a good person to have in the workplace. And those that do have PTSD, it's a real thing, and they need our help as well. Yeah. Like we shouldn't brush it under the table like a generation before did. And so I chose different charities because there's so many great veteran service organizations, and you know, like Operation Gratitude, Semper Fi Fund, For Veterans' Sake. There's hundreds of charities. So I asked the listener to find a local one, find one that speaks to you, and just, $5, $20. And if it comes down to buying the movie or giving $10, give the $10. And then you can steal the movie. I'm sure they'll put it on some torrent site.
You are a horrible, horrible man.
I'm a terrible businessman. I'm terrible. You don't promote your movie by telling people not to buy it. What have I learned?
Oh, boy. Well, Jordan, it's always a treat to have you on the show. Thank you so much for your time, and best of luck with how the movie does out there, as well as how people sort of turn their hearts to our vets. I think this movie will actually help people to kind of get more of a clue of what these guys are going through. And
it's crazy because, I mean, I'm sure Robin Williams hated the war as much as we do.
Sure.
Like you hate the war. You hate the ridiculousness of the lack of weapons of mass destruction, who we went after 9/11, like all that, as I'm assuming most people listening are of the liberal bent.
Possibly.
Who knows
in this time of Trump, who knows?
Yeah. But that's you can segregate your heart or your mind. I still hate all that stuff. But now I understand what it means for those guys to volunteer for service. That was the hardest thing going into this was, am I inadvertently supporting a war by supporting the troops? And I think I found the answer is no.
That's great.
Cool. Hey, thanks again. I really appreciate you having me on.
My pleasure. And look forward to seeing you soon. I'll be down in L.A. a couple of times in the next few months, so hopefully we can get together.
I would love to buy you a modestly priced lunch.
That would be fantastic. I would eat it. All right, Jordan.
Talk to you later.
Take care.
Man.
Bye.
Bye.
Always a delight to chat with Jordan. You can read my review of I Am Battle Comic on HuffPost at hirsch.co/battlecom, BATLCOM. There's also a link up on the blog post for this episode at our home site, succotashshow.com. And I look forward to being able to visit him at the Respect the Process microphones one of these days when I'm in LA. We've got a few minutes left before we have to throw it back to the network, so let's see if there's anything in the tweet sack. Tweety, shall we? Well, looky there. First thing out of the sack is Jordan Brady with a direct message on Twitter responding to my HuffPost review of his film. He says, quote, "Wow, I am so touched by your kind words. Thank you, sir," unquote. My pleasure, Jordan. It really is a well-done and enjoyable documentary, so I hope you get a chance to see it. Got a direct message as well from Emily Amy Lauren Becca, host of the new Support for This Podcast Soundcast. I had mentioned her show on the Also Listening To section of Splitsider's This Week in Comedy podcast column last week, and I will feature a clip from her show. It's a new show, by the way, just a few episodes in so far. But she wrote, quote, "Great show." That's about this program, by the way. "Great show. Thanks for the plug on Twitter. Just curious, how did you find our show?" Unquote. I actually had heard about support for this podcast from one of my cube mates at the agency where I work, Sarah Grieve. Hi, Sarah. And so I told Emily, and she thanks Sarah. Kind of a mini cavalcade of gratitude. You know, the cavalcade of gratitude, like we're about to do right now. Jeff Umbro, Ned Kenny, Jennifer Driggers, Yes But Why Podcast, Juice in the Morning, The Crazy Town Podcast, Marta Shadell, In Poor Taste Podcast, Dave in the Cave, Gary Snow, Sherry Leslie, Broken Filter Live Podcast, Pod Dunk, David the Producer, Jeff Capri, Bob Kubata, Don Barnhart, Salty Language Podcast, Ed Wallach, Rich Fulcher, Andy Pandini, Chris Pauley, The Idiot Box, The Slant Podcast, Razzles C-137, Dave Nelson, Jake and Tom Conquer the World Soundcast, Changes in Latitudes, Gift of Assholes, Russ Martucci, Pointless Discussions, Smugcast, My Neighbors Are Dead Soundcast, Travis Clark, Ice and the Face, GeekFeed.com, Illusionoid, and Hunter Block. And just like that, boom, We're done with this installment of Succotash Chats. No burst o' durst this time, just because we put this episode up so quick after Epi156 that we missed the release window for Will Durst's usual segment. We'll get you next time, Will, but if you are missing your fix of Durst, follow him on Twitter @WillDurst. All right, don't forget to support us on our new Patreon page at patreon.com/Succotash. And you can always support us for free by heading over to iTunes to rate and review us there. I'll talk to you next time you hear me, which will likely be on a subsequent installment of this here show. In the meantime, thank you for passing the Succotash. Later days, dude.
You've been listening to Succotash Clips, the Comedy Soundcast Soundcast, with your host, Marc Hershon. Brought to you by Henderson's Pants and...
Imagine your company's name right here.
Find us on the web at succotashshow.com, on iTunes, on Stitcher Smart Radio, on SoundCloud, and on the Laughable app. You can also hear us streaming and like us on Facebook. Follow us on Twitter at Succotash Show. Email us at
marc@succotashshow.com.
or call into the Succotash hotline at our non-toll-free call number, 818-921-7212.
That number again is 818-921-7212.
You can also upload clips from your favorite comedy soundcasts directly to us using our direct upload link at hightail.com/u/Succotash. Succotash is produced and engineered with the kind assistance of Joe Paulino through the auspices of Studio P Sausalito, home of the hit. Our associate producer is Tyson Sainer. Our musical director is Scott Carvey. Our booth assistant is Kenny Durges. Until next time, I am your loyal booth announcer, Bill Heywatt, reminding you to please pass the Succotash. Goodbye.
This woman, I mean, as shy as she could be, comes up, waits to the end of the show at this base in Bagram in Afghanistan, in the camouflage with her M16, as they all had in the audience, and she goes, "Hey, I'm a open mic comedian. I just did my first one when I was stationed in another country." And can I show you? Would you guys give me some pointers? So she goes and gets her laptop, comes back. We're in this big place where we did the show, the big hut.
Yeah.
And the comics, 3 of them are watching. One of them has no interest. And she's over their shoulder, like hanging on every laugh and looking at them. And I've got these close-ups. It was such great footage. And I said to her, "You have to give me the link. Like I need this footage. I need the file. I need whatever."
Yeah.
It wasn't YouTube. It was like on her computer, and I didn't have. You got to send me this. You got to send me this. And it would have been so touching. Like, what are the odds that there's a
comic
there, aspiring comic, and the guys gave her notes about be yourself and da da da, and couldn't find her. And I took screenshots. I sent them to. I sent them to the base. I sent them to the guy that booked me. I think I may have put her on Facebook. No, I wouldn't have put her on Facebook. But I said I'm looking for so and so on Facebook.
Yeah.
And never heard.
Huh.
Just fell into this void.
Wow.
And I thought it would have been it wouldn't have been even a B story. It would have been just a little moment there.
Well, yeah, it would have been interesting.